Mysterious doors. You've been driving your car for hours, but eventually you admit that you've gotten lost. You're tired, thirsty, hungry, and have no money to buy anything. Suddenly, on the side of the road, you see 4 doors. Behind the first door, there's plenty of drinking water. The second door hides tons of tasty dishes. Behind the third door, there's a cozy hotel room with a comfortable bed. And if you open the fourth door, you'll see piles of money. Which door will you open first? The very first door you should open is your car door. A big mistake. A famous criminal, Ben, was hired to steal important documents from a wealthy businessman. The man was in England at that time, and Ben had to take a flight from New York to London. There, he headed to the necessary hotel and bribed the receptionist to tell him where the businessman stayed. His room is on the 3rd floor, the first one on the right. When Ben reached the correct door, he knocked, but there was no answer. So he broke into the room and started to search for the documents. But soon, the man realized that it was the wrong room. How could that happen if the receptionist hadn't lied? In England, they call the first floor ground floor. It means that the businessman actually lived on the 4th floor. A cursed house. Once, a traveler heard about a cursed house. There lived a vampire and a beauty. And since rumor had it that the beauty was held in the house against her will, the man decided to help the girl. But when he was talking to her, he suddenly shouted, "The vampire is returning! We have to hide in the basement and lock the door." And so they did. But in the morning, the traveler was already turned into a vampire. You have 10 seconds to figure out how the vampire got to him. The beauty was the vampire. A clever ticketing clerk. A tourist who didn't know English came up to the ticket counter at a New York subway station. One ticket cost 50 cents, and the man handed him $1. The ticketing clerk gave the tourist 2 tickets without even asking how many of them he wanted. How did she know? The tourist gave her 4 quarters, and she immediately realized that if he wanted just 1 ticket, he would have handed just 2 quarters. Witty mind. One night, a bunch of thieves were stealing boxes with electronics from a warehouse and carrying them to their van when they heard a police car siren. But even though they didn't manage to avoid the police, they didn't get arrested. Why? They started to carry the boxes back into the warehouse, pretending to be a late-night delivery. A safe elevator. You receive a message that says a violent and dangerous man is entering your office building, and you need to get out as soon as possible. You're rushing towards the elevator when both of them simultaneously open their doors. And in both of them, there's a suspicious-looking guy. Which elevator should you take? You have 10 seconds to save your life. You should jump into the second elevator, because the dangerous man has just entered the building and can't be coming from upstairs. A safe place. Lucas lived in Paris, but he didn't like the Eiffel Tower. So every day, he ate his dinner in the only place where it couldn't be seen. What was this place? Lucas always had dinner in a cafe at the base of the tower. A locked room. You have a storeroom in your house that can be locked with a special padlock. It gets closed without a key, but to open it, you have to use one. The only person who has the key is you, and there are no duplicates. You lock the door carefully every evening, but one day, a golden brooch that was stolen from the museum the day before is found lying in the middle of your storeroom. The police suspect that you're the thief because no one else has the key and you live alone. You know for sure that you're innocent. But then, how did the brooch appear in the room? You have 10 seconds to clear yourself. While you were in the storeroom, the real criminal changed the padlock. You didn't need the key to close it, so you didn't realize it had been changed. Later, the thief opened the padlock with his own key and left the brooch inside the room. A werewolf mystery. Last night, during a full moon, several people disappeared in the city. Locals believe that the culprit was a werewolf, and you're invited to investigate this case. There are 3 suspects, Jack, Levi, and Luke. But all of them have alibis. Jack was walking with his girlfriend near the river. Levi was choosing a silver ring for himself in the mall. And Luke, who is a museum guard, had the night shift at work. You have just 10 seconds to learn the truth. Jack was walking under the full moon and didn't turn into a werewolf. Levi wasn't afraid to put on silver rings. The werewolf is Luke. A jailbreak. You've been captured and kept in a jail for several months. One day, you manage to open your cell and get out into the hall. There are 3 exits. A huge, vicious-looking man guards one of them. The second has angry dogs. And in front of the 3rd exit, there's a timer ticking down to an explosion in 5 minutes. Which exit will you choose? Wait until the explosion is over and get out through the 3rd exit. An escape plan. Some criminals took 3 bank workers and locked them in a basement, with only one window high above. They decided that at least one of them had to escape and warn the police. The men stood on each other's shoulders, but the one on the top still couldn't reach the window. But then they changed one thing, and one of them managed to escape. You have 10 seconds to understand what they did. The tallest of them climbed on the top, and since this man also had longer arms, he managed to reach the window. Tomb Raider. You're an archaeologist exploring an ancient tomb in the jungle. But after several hours inside, you realize that you've gotten lost. Suddenly, you see 3 doors leading to the main hall. But there is a trap behind each of the doors. The first one leads to the room filled with tarantulas. Behind the second, there is a mechanism launching arrows several feet above the ground. And the 3rd door hides a 100-foot drop-off. You have only 10 seconds to decide which door will lead to freedom. You should choose the door with the arrows behind it. Since they fly several feet above the ground, you can always crawl under them. Garden riddle. In the morning, you find several pieces of coal, a carrot, and a hat lying in your yard. You know that nobody could put these random objects there. So how did they turn up in the middle of your lawn? It was warm at night, and a snowman melted. A fly in the coffee. James came to a cafe to drink coffee. But when the waitress brought him a cup, the man found a fly in his drink. He called the waitress and told her to bring him another coffee. She did, but when James took a sip from the new cup, he got really angry and asked for the manager. He complained that the waitress had brought him the same coffee. How did he know? The new coffee was already sweet because James had previously put sugar into his first cup before finding the fly. A treasure chest. You found a chest filled with gold, but it's guarded by a monster dog. There are 3 keys on the floor: black, golden, and silver. Only one of them opens the chest, and you also have just one attempt to get the treasure. If you choose the wrong key, the dog will attack you. On the ground, there's a scribbled note: TJKHOE, Which key will you pick? If you put the letters of the scribble in the correct order, you'll get the answer: the golden key.